Greetings and salutations. This is Joel Duff. Happy New Year. I'm back. Little short episode of Critiquing Creationism today. If I wanted endless fodder for this particular channel in which I was critiquing creationism, I could do 1,000 of these episodes. But it really shouldn't be necessary if other young earth creationists would get the crazy creationist under rein, if they would try to tamp down on the complete nuttiness. Because there's really no point, there's no reason for me to have to critique each one of these different memes and so forth that show up on various Facebook groups. Of course, there's Instagram and on Twitter and all these different places. I see the same things over and over and over again. And they pass by without other young earth creationists saying, look, you got to stop this. This is utter nonsense. This makes young earth creationists look foolish. I wish that Answers in Genesis or ICR or Creation Ministries International, the big three, Young Earth Apologetics Ministries, I wish they would assign somebody to go, especially somebody with some name recognition. Just spend an hour each week. Go to these different sites, go to these different social media places. Find where people are posting this craziness under the name of Young Earth Creationism, and simply give them a gentle reprimand. No, this is not what young earth creationists believe. This is a very poor argument. We recommend you don't use this particular argument because this stuff proliferates and I think gives young earth creationism a bad name, as if it needed any help getting a bad name, all right, at all. But I'm just going to show you a couple from the group Creationism on Facebook. This is the kind of stuff I encounter all the time. And sometimes there's hundreds of comments. And when I look at those comments, I don't see other young earth creationists. I see young earth creationists defending this stuff that's put out on there. I don't see other young earth creationists saying, look, I'm a young earth creationist, but this is a bad argument. We shouldn't be saying things like this. And again, that leads to this perception of young earth creationists that they'll believe anything, to have any ability to devise good arguments versus bad arguments. So let's just look at a couple real quick. Like I said, this is just a short episode of Critiquing Creationism. So here we have Jason Ash. Right now, I'm using his name because this is a public account, and he just appeared late in December on this Facebook group. And then immediately started posting memes, which are basically recycled memes from other people, as if he's making some profound statement. Sometimes I think that people post this stuff because they're not even young earth creationists. They're trying to mock young earth creationism. And it's amazing that I don't think that's the case with him, because I looked at his regular profile. He seems to be a really devout person who really probably does believe in young earth creationism and thinks that he's helping and promoting young earth creationism on the internet by posting this stuff. But nonetheless, I do see things where I think that it's as if people who aren't young earth creationists are posting the wildest, craziest ideas in the name of young earth creationism, only to show that no one will counter them. I mean, other than those who aren't young earth creationists. But young earth creationists won't get up the gumption to say, no, I don't think so. This is a bad argument. So here we have evolution wants you to believe that plants cannot visually see, a reminder of that, was able to magically capture the image data of a hummingbird and then alter its own genes to create a 3D image of a hummingbird. Laugh. I trust God's word about creation, not the hypotheses of men. Of course, this isn't the hypotheses of men, because this isn't what any evolutionist would argue is actually happening here. Plants don't protect themselves by insects by shaping their leaves like hummingbirds. Okay, these aren't leaves. These are petals to start out with. I've seen this meme multiple times. This is a flower. All right, so it's not shaping its leaves. It's shaping its petals. But also, if you looked at this particular flower from a different direction, it doesn't look anything like a hummingbird. I don't think any evolutionary biologist is saying like, oh yeah, this plant is trying to make a hummingbird looking flower in order to what? Attract hummingbirds, because hummingbirds look at other flowers that look like themselves or other things that look like themselves, and then they're attracted to them. And so This isn't part of the hypothesis that somehow plants see hummingbirds and then shape themselves to look like them. Right? This is a complete misconception and misunderstanding of evolutionary theory. All right, this looks identical, but it's actually by a different person several weeks before on the same group, posted the same mean. What vegetable or floral eyes captured enough data about birds to self-imprint its own genes to do this 2D image of a bird? Plant's not protecting itself by trying to look like a bird. I'm not saying that there aren't many different forms of organisms that take on characteristics in order to, like, camouflage, in order to sculpt themselves, but they don't look at the world and then intentionally sculpt their genes to do that. We don't have time to go into all the different mechanisms for how organisms adapt to their environment, how they might come to have camouflage. But clearly this person doesn't recognize and understand how that occurs. Think about it. What do you think? You watch this short video, which has been on TikTok, been spread around on Facebook, Twitter, and so forth, and it's talking about how there's so many craters on the face of the earth. Well, craters are hard to explain from a young earth creationist perspective. And so they think they have a simpler explanation, and that is the flood of Noah, of course. Noah, was covered with water. There was a lot of water underneath the ground. And so after the flood, when everything settles, there's pockets of water still contained in the rocks. And where there's pools of water in the rock, they then splurt out. And when they splurt out, right, they form a geyser, which is misspelled constantly in the video. And this geyser then forms these circular bodies, which represent where the geyser was. And then they have some pictures from Yellowstone showing a geyser, and it has like concentric rings of material around them. See, they look like craters. These are just much larger craters that would have been much larger geysers after Noah's flood. And of course, in the comment section, everyone points out that, like, yeah, look, there's no evidence of, like, a void underneath where the water was, that there's all these other features that represent, something that slammed into the earth, right? There's various nanodiamonds, there's shattered rock, there's sometimes remnants of meteorites that are found, right? So rare earth elements that are found inside in these craters and around these craters and the material that's been exhumed. And of course, the video itself actually mentions there's never been any meteorites found in these particular craters, so that's itself a lie. And so this isn't something that any flood geologist has said seriously. That, I'll just put it this way: this isn't anything that the major young earth creationist organizations who are promoting flood geology as a serious alternative to conventional geology have proposed as a cause for various blemishes on the earth that we call craters. And so, but these videos are out there in the guise of being flood geology explanations, and therefore representing or making the arguments that this is what flood geologists believe, or this is a great alternative. Again, this stuff needs to be called out by young earth creationists. And yes, they do call this stuff out, but they do it in sort of like, oh, here's an article that we posted on our website that no one's ever going to find or refer to. But we can say that, yes, we are pointing out the errors in young earth creationism. That's not enough. Somebody needs to go into this comment section and just, somebody with some authority, and they just say, nope, this is not a good argument. This doesn't reflect the consensus view of flood geologists. And so buyer beware if you're watching this stuff. Which brings me to this example. Nothing to see here, just another technologically advanced time traveler that went back in time, ran around barefoot with dinosaurs. Scientists actually suggest that these human footprints were made by dinosaurs. What dinosaur has 5 toes? I trust God's word about creation over man's misconceptions. Well, this man has a whole bunch of misconceptions himself. He's sharing something called the Zapata footprint, which was found or said to be found by Don Patton in New Mexico. And you'll see that the caption here, 250 million year old human footprints found in Permian limestone in New Mexico. Now, Don Patton has never provided any video evidence or pictures of this particular footprint in place, like where it was found. So and showing what rock layer it's found in and showing the evidence that it was found in this particular rock layer that's Permian aged. It has never been shown or been allowed to be looked at and by other scientists, including really other young Earth creationists. There's always promises that more work will be done, but it's just like on faith. You have to believe me. I found this footprint and it's this old. And so therefore, dinosaurs and humans must have lived together, and this must be the result of humans that walked around, apparently right in the middle of the flood, because this would have been flood layers. All right, so the Zapata footprint has no merit, and young Earth creationists themselves have called this out as being like highly suspicious, right? There doesn't seem to be, there's no evidence that humans were walking around during the flood. In fact, there's really no evidence that there's of any human remains thus that has been found from the flood layers. And even Answers in Genesis and others have written about this. Also, I want to just point out, here's the ignorance involved in this particular. I looked at maybe 100 comments on this one, and nobody even noted this obvious problem. 250 million year old human footprints found in Permian limestone. And the Permian is not the dinosaur age. No dinosaur bones or footprints have ever been found in Permian rock. So that would be a novelty in itself. And so obviously no what does he say there? No scientists suggest that these human footprints are made by dinosaurs, because if this really was in Permian rock, I don't think there's any scientists that are going to suggest it was made by dinosaurs, since they don't have any other evidence that dinosaurs existed at this particular time. So they're not going to suggest that it made footprints at that particular moment. And so this author, this guy who posted this and made this comment about, oh yeah, dinosaurs, all right, and humans, were around. He doesn't even understand the fossil record at all. Clearly doesn't understand what flood geologists accept as the fossil record either. So here we have, for example, here we have Andrew Snelling, who wrote this, where are all the human fossils? He's really responding to the question of like, why aren't there human fossils in the fossil record, right? In the geological column. Not, he admits they're human fossils, but he considers all those human fossils to be in the post-flood record, stuff that happened after Noah left the ark. And so therefore all the descendants of Noah, including Neanderthals and so forth, in their model. All of those Neanderthal fossils are post-flood. So representing, again, like I said, descendants of Noah, not of Adam. Well, eventually of Adam, but not his direct descendants. And so he says that he goes through a number of examples, but also other claims of giant humans or other types of fossils that are said to be humans, and other evidence of maybe cultural artifacts that are in the geological column that he pretty much dispels all of those and says at the end, we find here's the conclusion. As far as we're aware at the present time, there are no indisputable human fossils in the fossil record that we could say belong to the pre-flood human culture. He has to say pre-flood because anything that's in the geological column that's part of the flood would have to be stuff that happened that's simply picking up cultural artifacts or picking up humans that existed pre-flood and then depositing them right in the flood rocks themselves. And so here's Andrew Snelling saying, okay, yes, there's a bunch of creationists out there on the fringes, right? They're well-meaning. They want to prove that the world is young, and they're looking for any possible evidence. And they have found various items that they think look like human footprints or they look like cultural artifacts, and they're ascribing them to being pre-flood elements that then are captured in the flood record. But I've examined those, and I don't find any evidence that any of those are there. Well, this is December 1991. This is a fairly old article. But other young Earth creationists, including Answers in Genesis, have kind of dismissed the Zapata footprint. So here we have young Earth creationists that are established young Earth creationists, I would say are respected among all the young Earth creationist community, saying these aren't legitimate unquestioned fossils or evidence of pre-flood people. Now, yes, we believe there were pre-flood people. There was pre-flood culture. Some of that could be captured in the geological column, but we have various reasons why it might be hard to find, or it might be hard to prove that. So that's fine. But to let this type of stuff circle the internet over and over and over again and be seen by thousands of people. This particular meme right here has cropped up over and over and over the last 15 years. And so even though there was an initial like, we don't really believe this, that apparently hasn't filtered out to the average person. And this is something that I get hit with all the time from young Earth creationists, like, well, what about this? And what about this? And what about this? And most of the things that they've heard and seen are these very spurious pieces of evidence. They're not the things that actually come from answers in Genesis and other places, right? It's all this other stuff that's cluttering up the internet. And this is a problem misinformation is a problem. Obviously, a massive problem for all of human society in all different kinds of topics. Right? But the only way to combat that misinformation is the diligent work of individuals who constantly have to point out that that is misinformation. And that can't come from people who nobody's ever heard of, right? Somebody's commenting that's just like, well, Joe Schmo, who I don't know, is saying like, oh yeah, this is bad. And even if they go through the work of like, okay, I'm going to send you a link and I'm going to do all this stuff, that stuff doesn't really make a dent in a true believer's mind. But if Andrew Snelling, if Ken Ham, if Rob Carter, right? If any of the names in young Earth creationism that the community respects as being authoritative figures within young Earth creationism were to comment and say, all right, so Ken Ham comments on his own blog posts. And obviously people are like, because they have questions. And then when he responds, like sometimes you're like, I don't know about that. Or that's not what I thought. But still they're deferential, and you can see that they're going to be a little bit hesitant about continuing to promote whatever they said, because Ken Ham they have so much respect for, that if he says, no, that's not what we mean, that's not what young Earth creationists say, that's not part of flood geology, right? That's not what we mean by a kind. It has a huge dampening effect on the future use of those ideas by those particular individuals that he's responded to. And so that's why I suggest that young Earth creationists, time well spent would be actually having individuals with some authority going in and simply writing very simple responses. They don't have to get involved in huge debates. They don't have to respond 25 times to every crazy lunatic out there who wants to respond to them and get into a discussion. They simply can add like basically factual statements about what young Earth creation, what the consensus view of young Earth creationism is, and how this particular post doesn't represent the overall consensus of young Earth creationists. All right, that's my simple message today. Basically, it's my message to young Earth creationists about how to help clean up their own act, clean up the misinformation about young Earth creationism that's out there on the internet. Because I can respond to this meme. Now, I'm not going to spend the time. I once in a while I'll say something to these particular memes, and they're not sarcastic, or I've been known to be sarcastic, but I try to be very factual based, and usually it's pointing out young Earth creationists don't believe this. You are spreading information that is, I consider to be a lie. You are lying, and therefore trying to you might not know it's a lie, but you should be aware that you're spreading a lie. And then by spreading it to other people, they're going to spread those lies even more. And so you need to nip that in the bud. So I can make those comments. But again, who knows me, right? Now, some people know me, but most people on these groups aren't going to know me. And they also might, if they do know me, they'll know that I'm a critic of young Earth creationism. And so they're not going to listen to me. They just aren't, right? You say, oh, you got a bias, so therefore I can't listen to what you say. But if Andrew Snelling were to get on here and post his own article and say, please go here and read this, right? I'm Andrew Snelling at answersingenesis.com. Go read this article. That's going to have a much, much larger impact than anything anyone else can do. Mostly the comments in these things are pooled ignorance and people who really know that this is stupid and are making fun of it. And so I don't spend a whole lot of time on Facebook groups and other things. There's nothing for me to be gained from that other than just, I watch some of these groups simply to have a gauge on sort of where the conversation is. What kind of things are popular? What kind of things are what are people saying? How do people respond to things? How does the language of Ken Ham and Martin Iles and all these others and how they respond to critics, how does that filter down to the individual followers and how they then respond? How does it change the discourse of things? So I'm interested in those types of things. I can't get into the individual details of what's wrong with each one of these individual memes and different things that people say on there, but it's a giant mess out there in these groups. Ah, that's it. I said I was going to keep it short, and I look over here and I see, oh boy, yeah, 24 minutes already. I'll try to edit this down to 15 or 20. All right, so thanks a lot. I'll talk to you later. Bye bye.